Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you very much for joining us on the 7th session of our MicroStation Live Series. Today's session is hosted by myself, Maz, and my colleague Samir. And the topic today is going to be smart deliverables. So without further ado, let's jump straight into it. So just some housekeeping rules here. Please go ahead and use the chat to share any questions or comments that you've got. We're going to try to do our best to run through all of them today. To watch the previous 6 sessions that we've already made, please do go ahead into YouTube and just type Bentley MicroStation. Our channel there has all of the live sessions that were presented previously, in addition to tons of other content relating to MicroStation. And of course, stay tuned for our next session. It will be via my LinkedIn channel again. We'll be advertising it from there and hopefully have the same viewers to join in and partake again. So without further ado, my name is Mazam Sarakan. I'm a product sales engineer here at Virtuosity. And today, to help me present this topic, we've got Samir Haq, who is a user success service manager for MicroStation, and who's spent a lot of years working with MicroStation. Over to you, Samir.
Thanks, Mazlana. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for taking some time out of your day and spending it with us. We're going to talk about smart deliverables, and we're going to focus primarily on really sheet production. So without further ado, let me go ahead and share my screen, and we'll go ahead and get started with some of the topics of the day. Now, I really didn't want to go too deeply into some sort of PowerPoint and spend time on slides. I'd rather spend time with the software with you. So please feel free to go ahead and type in comments, type in questions, and we'll address them as we go along. Now, sheet creation is a very vital part of our workflow. And basically, the sheet creation process can be very error-prone. It can be time-consuming and can result in inconsistencies and delays in the delivery of your project. So we want to prevent that, and we want to be able to provide you with the ability to automate many of the steps that you normally would take to lay out your sheets and basically speed up your process, provide well-organized methodologies for delivering your sheet sets, and of course, discover all the different capabilities that we have to provide sheet deliverables, smart deliverables. So let's get started. I'm inside MicroStation Connect Edition at the moment. Now, you'll notice I'm kind of running the dark theme here. If you don't know about the dark theme, you can find the dark theme as a preference. So that would be under your file and settings. And from here, you can simply go to your user preferences. And under look and feel category, you'll find apply the dark theme. So kind of just the way I'm running the software today. Okay, so lots of interesting things going on inside our sheet creation tool set. Now, you'll find some of these tools are in our view ribbon. So you'll see things like place name boundary. You'll see your clip volume tools and save view tools here as well. You'll also find some of these tools under our annotate ribbon. And under the annotate ribbon here, you'll find detailing tools. For example, here's one called place drawing boundary. And we'll talk about that. I'm going to actually get started with those name boundaries because it's kind of an interesting technology that really is just a simple advancement of existing technology. So you're familiar with the majority of what name boundaries do. So we'll take a look and see what they provide us. Now, name boundaries are a way to place content onto a new sheet. So as you can see, I have a blank sheet here and I want to put something in here. I could do it in a variety of ways. I could just outright draw here. Not particularly advisable. Again, that is time consuming and error prone. So what we really want to do is to be able to pull in data from an external source like a reference. And we want to be able to control the scaling, the symbology. We want to be able to control what gets clipped. And name boundaries allow us to do that. Let's take a look. When we select place name boundary, I'll pull my tool settings out over here. You'll see the tool settings dialog actually is got a lot of different things going on in it. Let's start by looking at the icon bar across the top. So it's asking us to place a name boundary. And really, as you can sort of see here, it's using methodologies to place this very similar to the methodologies that you would use to place a fence. So a name boundary actually is a fence. So you're probably familiar with fence technology. It's been in MicroStation for a very long time. And with regards to that, we provided you with the named fence in the AI. So there was this concept of being able to name your fence. Now we took the named fence and added on the ability to create a drawing. So we tacked on the create drawing dialog. As you can sort of see it right down there, create drawing. And added the ability to choose a specific seed to place this boundary. So a named boundary is a named fence with the create drawing dialog workflow attached. You can create this by either doing it from a drawing boundary, which is probably the most popular method of creating a named boundary. You can also do it by an element. So you might have an element out here that represents a boundary. You could draw 2 points, you could draw a polygon, or you could do a named boundary along a path by length. Most of us will choose this very first option here because a drawing boundary essentially is a named boundary that's been saved and that we would like to recall. And we save it off inside our seeds. In fact, this is inside a design library, I should say. It's in a design library, and the variety of named boundaries are listed inside of this design library. Now, this is actually kind of a tricky part. Setting up the design library, I should say. How do I get this list? Honestly, that's a topic for another session. It's almost we could spend a lot of time on how to generate this list. There is more detail about this, and we'll get into that perhaps in another session, but you have a list of boundaries that are available. Now you can simply provide it a name and a description, and you can choose your detail scale, which is very interesting. So here you can see this is based on United States scale, so it's got 1 inch in feet, so it's kind of an odd looking scale for those of you who are used to more direct scales like metric scales. So we'll leave it to full size. You'll notice that I can also place a single name boundary. I can place a matrix of name boundaries, or I can place this name boundary along a path. So a matrix width might look like this. You can see that I can create a matrix of rows and columns. And you can sort of see that out on your screen. You can see the black dots showing up, showing us where those would occur. Now, we'll go ahead and stick with single because we want to start with the simplest workflow and work our way from there. What does the name boundary really involve then? Well, we've got a fence floating off of our cursor. I'm going to go ahead and choose create drawing here. And we're going to go ahead and place this name boundary. And I can define the location wherever I want. As soon as I select a location for that name boundary, I'm taken directly into this create drawing dialog. And the create drawing dialog allows me to define what goes inside this area. So it first wants me to give it a name, and it's going to use the name that we chose for the name boundary. You notice you have the option here to switch it out if you really wanted to. You choose the wrong type of boundary. You can also choose an annotation scale, and this is really very nice, allowing you to change the size of the text based on the detail scale. There is the ability to create an intermediate model. We don't need that in this case, but we can also create a sheet model. In this particular case, actually, the drawing seed is pulling on the drawing model. Here you can see the sheet model itself is based on this particular DGN-lib, and there's that drawing seed.dgn-lib that I mentioned earlier. In addition, you could also choose to add this to your sheet index, and then you can come over here and select a folder if there was a sheet index all set up. So here you can see I have a sheet index set up, and as I expand it, I can add this to a very specific folder when I create it. And again, really, most of us would come in here and mess with scale if we needed to, and decide whether or not we wanted to add it to the sheet index or not. It's a very big dialog box, but most of the time we don't change these things very often. Now, I've gone ahead and done that. You'll notice that I also have the option here of a file name, so I can actually output this sheet to another file, and I can create a new sheet file here as well. Otherwise, it'll create it inside this file. So if I click on OK, it's going to go ahead and allow me to go ahead and create that boundary. You'll notice that it actually created this particular sheet for me, allowing me to sort of go in and do some referencing. So for now, what I can do is to finish this up by simply referencing data in. And of course, we just simply go to our reference dialog and pick up our reference of interest. And I'll just pick up something here. And I can attach whatever model I want to. And I'm just simply going to go ahead and do it. You'll notice that when I reference here, I can reference coincident. So find the center point of the reference file, find the center point of the master file, make those 2 points coincident. Global origin, find the origins of both that you can set. You can align these two references by standards, save views, or by, look at this, name boundaries. How about that? So when you reference, you're given a new option for these name boundaries. You'll notice that it automatically picks up the name of the boundary for this particular model. And I can go ahead and set up scales and a variety of other things. Now, there's a lot of things in this dialog, and I don't want to spend a lot of time, unless you have specific questions. Please feel free to add them to the comment area and the chat area. But there are many different things you can do here with this reference. For example, by default, MicroStation does not attach a reference to a level or a layer. If you wanted to do that, you most certainly could assign this reference to a layer. You can do nesting, and again, a variety of other things here as well. So there's the name of my drawing boundary. I've picked it off. I simply click on OK. And I'm able to go ahead and use my reference as I need it. Now, it didn't quite show up here. Probably have some image things here, right. I'll have to double check. Well, as usual, it showed up in the previous session, but not now. The danger of doing things live. Well, actually, it's relatively straightforward. Let me just quickly do this one more time here. And There we go. I do have the scale off here, but that's okay. Let me go ahead and fix that. That's easy to do. So really, the scale for this is, and let me just get rid of that one. The scale for this can be adjusted right here, as you normally would. So there's, oops, there we go. So you can go ahead and adjust your scale as you see fit. Help if I put my num lock on. All right. Okay, so referencing, you use the reference attachment methodology that uses name boundaries, and it automatically pulls that in. You'll notice that it actually has a boundary set up here. So let's go take a look at what we've got in terms of information here. So looking at this, you can see that I can open the actual design model and take a look at the actual source data. So if I wanted to come in here and change some of the text, that's easy to do. I can always go back to the source directly from my reference. So the name boundaries then really do provide us with a lot of power. They provide us definitely where we want our graphics to go. So they provide us a home for our graphics, and they provide us with a variety of methods to ensure that we are representing the correct data. So let's move on and take a look at what we would do to create a drawing boundary. So the name boundaries themselves, relatively straightforward. The only real trick to the name boundary then is when you come to your reference attach. Please make sure that you choose name boundaries as your reference attachment method. And yeah, scales, I'm not going to worry about those at the moment. Drawing boundaries are quite interesting. So with regards to a drawing boundary, traditionally, as we've done, we place them one at a time. And that's a little bit tedious as well. And you might have a detail on one sheet like this, but that's probably not what's going to happen. So what's going to probably happen is you're going to have a detail sheet. And that detail sheet is going to have some predefined areas that allow you to place your details. Let's go ahead and we're going to go ahead and choose to create a drawing boundary now. So I'm just going to go back to a previous model here. And I'm going to go ahead and create this drawing boundary. Now, the drawing boundary is a little bit more generic than the named boundary in that it can include a name boundary inside of it, or excuse me, it doesn't have to. Excuse me. Let's go ahead and take a look at how this works. It's going to go under the annotate ribbon, and from the annotate ribbon, we want to choose drawing boundary. Again, this is kind of a detailed, there's a lot of detail in this tool setting dialog, but we're going to sort of avoid a lot of the setup here, and we should probably come back to that setup a little bit later in another session. So first of all, you have to choose your detailing symbol style. And this is the actual symbol that will go underneath your detailing area. This is usually a circle with a line through it. And in the circle, there's a couple pieces of text. And on the, excuse me, and on the line, there's a couple of pieces of text as well. You can provide the name right here. So for example, you could go ahead and put in your name. And you can also choose which type of a drawing boundary this is going to be. It could be a section, an elevation, a detail, a plan, or even just general. You then choose your scale. So you can choose whatever you want to do. At this point, you can go ahead and define really the first corner of this drawing boundary. So I can come over here and draw my drawing boundary. You'll notice there's my text with a circle and a line and the couple pieces of text that we wanted. And that was our detailing symbol style. Most of us just put it down there. And so then we have a placeholder. This placeholder now allows me to come in and actually attach a reference to it, right? And what I've done so far really is place an area where I want to bring in my details. So I can go to my references now and select a reference. And again, I can come over here and choose a model to reference. And from here, again, you'll notice that once I've chosen a model, what do I want to reference? I've referenced a file and a model within that file. And then I have to choose how I'm going to orient them. You'll notice again that there's my name boundary. And it's set to a custom detail scale at the moment, but we can mess around with that a little bit later. So there's your reference attachment dialog. And really that's the critical step again, is once you select your model, you don't choose other methods of orientation. You choose named boundaries here. Pick the name of your symbol, it fills in everything else for you, and then you can go ahead and place it. So let's go take a quick look at what a completed sheet looks like. There's my, I knew scale was going to be off here, so I was not wanting to mess around too much, but no big deal. That can easily be changed. All right, and you'll notice that it goes straight into that name boundary. Let's zoom in a little bit further and take a closer look. So it put my reference in the area that I defined. It automatically clipped it. It automatically understood a variety of things. So as I changed, notice that when I changed the scale here, and I know this is American scales, it automatically updated it here. So 1/2 inch equals a foot is 1/24. And as I change this number, these will also change. As I change the names, these are all text fields which are driven by properties of the reference attachment and of this object.
So that's amazing. So when you're producing a set of drawings and you've got the same reference over several drawings, you don't have to go back and amend it each and every single one and change the text underneath it. This will automatically do it for you.
That's correct. We try to do as much of the automation of text as possible for you so that you have less errors in typing things in and worrying about the correct scales. So we try to remove the typing and the math from the process.
Also, I think someone spotted that there might be 2 drawing boundaries in that sheet. So
I did. I had the last one in there.
Yeah,
I didn't get rid of that one. So yeah, I'm
just well spotted. That's what we want.
Going crazy with all of my drawing boundaries here. So yeah, yeah, it did place it in the original one, but I apologize. There's lots of drawing boundaries going on there. Let's go take a quick look and see how we can set this up in a seed file. So we just set this up in an active drawing. But really what we want to do is to create a seed file. And I'm going to go into that DGN-lib now. And so this is brute force, just sort of putting it in one at a time. But what we really would like to do is to make sure that we have these things done in seed files. So I have a DGNlib folder for this project. There's a lot of different DGNlibs in here. There's one for drawing composition, and this is called civil drawing seeds.dgnlib. Happy to share this file with you, or any of these files with you, so that you have some examples to play around with. Okay. I know it looks a little bit strange, but we're going to, so this is a kind of an odd file, actually. And if you sort of probe into it, you'll see that it has lots of models. And these models are at the name of these models is what actually shows up in those dialog boxes. So when we went to view, we went to drawing boundary, I'm sorry, annotating drawing boundary. This pick list here, actually, I'm in the wrong one, aren't I? Let's go to name boundary. This pick list here, the drawing boundary pick list. You'll notice that it has detailed 3D English sheet, and these are actually in here. So these are the ones that are driving this list. There's even more going on here, but we'll leave that alone for a second. Now, we want to go to a specific sheet here, and that's what we typically will do, is to put a sheet inside this DGNlib.
Samir, just while you're on that,
yeah.
Steve has made a comment already. He says, isn't the only way to send the reference directly to a specific drawing boundary through the create drawing dialog?
That is correct. And that's why those create drawing dialogs do show up when we, so let's take a quick look at that. Let's go back. So this was placed using the create drawing dialog. So when I did the place drawing boundary and I define my boundary, this is essentially already a name boundary. So I can, at this stage, because I have a drawing boundary, do a direct reference attachment instead of having to go through the create drawing dialog. The create drawing dialog is automatically attached to the place named boundary.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a pre-population. So basically what we were doing with drawing boundaries is we're doing a setup. We want to set this thing up for our users. So what we do is we come in and we place drawing boundaries inside this sheet. So let me quickly show you how it goes. So I come over here to the drawing boundary. I'm going to go ahead and pick up method by 2 points. And I'm going to choose default, and this is name boundary full sheet. And we'll leave the scale there. So we just gave it a name. We do have different drawing types here. We're going to leave these as details, and then I'm going to go ahead and start placing these boundaries. So this is 2 points. So you can see what I'm doing is simply coming out and drawing out points here. Now there's a variety of things I could do here, right? I could make a big one. I can make smaller ones, or do a detail across the top, and then have more drawing boundaries down here. Like maybe, I'll leave this here. And then if I do another one, do one like this. And I can hide these symbols, by the way, anytime I want to. And then finally do one here. So I can let me bring it back here. Okay, So I can actually put in multiple name boundaries if I wanted to. So where's that third one? I put the symbol way over here. Shouldn't have done that. This is now pre-populated with these name boundaries. So if I come into my view attributes, you'll be able to see the boundary displays. Oops. Not quite sure why they're not showing up for some reason. I should see these here. I should see my lines in between, as I'm actually having a display problem here. What I should see is a big box across the top and two smaller boxes down here, the way I kind of drew them, and I don't know where my boundaries went. Oh, let me just do this. So there we go. There's one box, there's the other box, and there's that third box. So this is pre-populated. Now what I can come in and do is, because this is pre-populated, I can just go directly to my reference attachments and start attaching things if I wanted to. So again, it's just a way to pre-populate these things the way you want them to be set up. Oops, I did not choose the right one there. There you have to select the name boundary. It does help. Okay, so the two ways then really are to go ahead and I'll have to control the display here. That is a bit of an issue, but no big deal. Those are construction elements that can be turned off really quickly. Let me just go to a finished drawing and show you kind of the background. Let's go and open this one. Okay, so this is kind of the way it was completed. Let's take a closer look and see what was happening here. You'll notice that each one of these was done with one of those drawing boundaries. And actually, we drew the lines in here. Those lines were physically drawn in. The naming is controlled for you. The scales are controlled for you. The locations are controlled for you. You can always go back to your source very quickly to make changes here. So this is all basically hyperlinked as a way to manage all your details. When you want to change your scale, and you can see that some of these are not to scale. These can be done through the reference dialog. So I can go straight to the reference dialog, and you'll notice that each one of these is a reference that has its orientation, how it's attached, set up with the name boundary. So let's go into one of these and take a look. So you can see that I can actually choose the name boundary here if I wanted to switch it out, but this is how these were set up. The same way that we did before. We chose the model, we chose the name boundary, we located where we wanted it. It can't actually put it, so I actually do need to physically locate it. I mean, I have to click inside here to put this manhole frame and cover in. It doesn't know to put the manhole frame and cover in the upper left. You have to do that still. But outside of that, all of the rest of this is taken care of. Now, you'll notice that we've even gone a little bit further here by using the sheet information that we had talked about in the previous session to start filling in some of the information here, like the sheet name, the sheet number, and then the rest of this can also be put in as we move along. So the questions coming in, Steve, isn't the only way to send it. I think the display of the drawing boundaries is controlled by the detailing symbol style seed file. That's right. You do control your display of those drawing boundaries from those. That seed file is very critical, and actually is probably a very good subject for a future session, because technically it all comes down to this file. The rest of it is just selecting from dialogues and selecting from pick lists. The setup is all in this file. And if this file is not correct, it doesn't work. And Steve's asking, from what I have been able to tell, the actual boundary of the drawing boundary is only used to center the reference that gets sent to it. If you adjust the drawing boundary that all has a reference associated with it, it does not affect anything. That is correct. So it is meant to be a placeholder. There are ways of adjusting it, but you need to go to the reference tools to adjust it. I know this is a very complicated thing, and we're in part 3 of a series. So for those of you who weren't in part 1 and part 2, this might be a little bit out of, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So I would recommend you go back to part 1 and part 2 of this series, which is actually number 5 and number 6 of the live sessions, and review those before you come back here, because the setup to this was done in those other sessions. Yeah. So going back to our final drawing. The drawing boundary here, you can actually, I'm sorry, these little mini bars are a little hard to get to sometimes. I've had too much coffee or something. There we go. These are actually also exchangeable. You can actually switch these out to something else, so you can see that here's the actual name of the reference, and then you can also go ahead and go and directly open it. So drawing boundaries are the placeholders. They allow you to create a sheet that already has spots, in this case 5 spots, to put details. This makes the life of your drafters easier, because when they reference, they'll automatically go into one of these spots, and their text and their scales will be handled for them. So, other questions? This is a complicated topic. And
yeah, there's nothing, no questions as yet.
I do appreciate that it may not make a lot of sense the first time you go through it, and even the second time you go through it. If you have more persistent questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We're here to help you. And I think in the most critical piece here is setting up that drawing seed DGN lib. So if you're having trouble with that, I have documentation, really thorough documentation for it, way beyond what's in help. So please reach out. We're happy to share that documentation for you to make sure that you can.
Yeah, definitely. You can reach out to myself as well. We've got tons of content that we can fire your way to get to grips with this, with very succinct manuals and instructions on how to do it. But again, Samir, this is a great topic that can benefit many workflows in terms of making efficiency and taking out the errors that might come from manually doing these kind of things. We've got a question from Steve now, Samir.
Yeah, good comment. Important to note that these are very specific. There is a lot of specificity. As you can well imagine, I do have different types of details, sections, plans, elevations. We have to specify the type, otherwise it will not show. So when I come over here and I do the drawing type, you'll notice that I have section, elevation, detail, and plan. Please make sure you choose the correct one. If you don't know which one to choose, I generally go for this kind of stuff. Normally it's details in this area for this type of work. But then if you don't really know, just select general. But obviously, if you're doing a plan or an elevation, please select plan or elevation.
Absolutely. Okay, Samir?
Other questions, comments? Thank you, Steve. Thank you very much. And please feel free to reach out to Maz, and he'll be able to send you additional documentation.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. So keep the questions coming in, please. Thank you for that, Samir. As and when we will bounce back to you. Stay live. If we can just bounce back to me to continue the rest of this PowerPoint. So again, let's hear from you. Please do go ahead and ask any questions or make any comments that you wish. Thanks to all the individuals that already have taken part. So I'm writing to you from Virtuosity. We're a Bentley company. So what we're doing is we provide Bentley software at a much easier and accessible way to yourselves as users for small to medium-sized businesses or individual practitioners. So what we do here, you can take out MicroStation and many other applications on what we call practitioner licenses. So they're a 1-year usage that come with what we call keys, which essentially unlock the value of expert services for you. So you can have the mentoring, on-demand courses, and tailor-made training to get to grips with this software. And what these keys entail, you can get tailored training, you can have a classroom session virtually, you can have consultancy services and many other ways of undertaking these trainings to get to grips with the technicalities of the software, in addition to the things that we'll cover today. So thank you very much for this. If we can just relay on why MicroStation is a very important CAD choice for infrastructure companies and architects and engineers in the sector. We've covered most of these topics already in previous sessions. So scalability, generating efficient 2D and 3D drawings for any data sets. We've done this with large data sets. I think it was in session 2. So high quality deliverables, the ease of use, mastering for a familiar environment with in-app learning, video tutorials, and extensive support from us. And of course, the consistency as well, where you can utilize data needed to deliver your projects, no matter when it was created, across all of the MicroStation versions. So if you'd like to trial a MicroStation for 14 days, please go ahead and scan that code you see on your screen there. That will take you to our website where you can instantly download a 14-day trial and perhaps try some of the things. So thank you very much, everyone. That's been myself, Mazlum, and Samir, who's been very, very helpful today. Thank you very much, Samir, and thank you for everyone for joining today. If there are any remainder questions, we'd love to answer them in our comment section. And again, please hit our YouTube Bentley MicroStation channel to view our previous shows as well. Thank you very much for everyone joining, and have a lovely day.